Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Angela Allen. Welcome back to the Handmade Homestead and Garden. Today is a bittersweet day and a hopeful day. It is going to be our last really full garden tour for 2025. It is almost mid-November, and we are going to take a look at the garden, see how it stands right now, and we're going to talk about how to prep your garden beds to get the most harvest, the most produce, the most productive garden you've ever had for next year. Let's go. Well, it is crazy windy here today. So most of the outside footage I am going to voice over later when I do the editing process. So you might notice a slight change in the audio, but can't really be helped. It is so windy, you guys. I can barely get my tripod to stand up. So it's going to be a wild ride, but it'll be a lot of fun. It's cool this morning, but it's not freezing, but definitely sweatshirt weather. So we are going to start with a little bit of a garden tour, and Mike is going to reset the asparagus bed for me. And in doing that, I'll be able to get some footage of just how we reset our beds, but we're going to talk about that. All right, I'm ready to go. Ready to brave the wind. I hope you are too. So grab your hat, grab your cup of tea, and let's get going. Most of the garden is cleaned out, and what isn't will be cleaned out today. And we're going to show you how we put the garden areas to bed for the winter season, how we get them ready for our most productive, big harvests next season. All of that starts today. So let's go. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a little primer on how to best winterize your garden beds for next spring's growing season. I'm going to show you how to keep your garden soil healthy to maximize next year's harvest, and I'm going to show you the simple steps to winterize your garden beds to ensure an abundant and vibrant garden next spring so that you can grow whatever you want to grow. So let's talk about why winterizing matters. I mean, it's just dirt, right? It's outside anyway. But the truth is, if you take the few minutes now to make your beds ready for winter, you'll find that not only will you have an improved bounty next year, the winterizing will protect your soil, it will prevent hydrophobia, which is soil that doesn't want to absorb water, and it will save you time and effort and planting time this spring. First off, I want to encourage you to fix the problems. Whatever problems that may be in your garden, now is the time of year to do that. If you have beds that are crooked, planting boxes that are bowing or falling over, soil that has rocks in it, fix them. Fix the structural problems in your trellises, in your grow bags, in everything. Any weed issues, now is the time to switch over to a no-dig gardening method to prevent weeds from coming up as a problem at all next year. And if any weeds come up, it's really a minimal problem. It's also time to remove dead and diseased plants and to heavily prune those things that need pruning, like these rose bushes right here. This is also a good time of year to improve your drainage. I mean, certainly you're not going to put in water lines that run water this time of year, but you could put in water lines. You could improve drainage by sloping or adding extra bedding or different kinds of bedding to containers that you have, or to your garden in general if you need to take care of muddy rows or that kind of thing by putting down wood chips or black plastic, those kinds of things. This is the perfect time of year to do it. Before it gets too cold, before you run out of time, before the ground freezes or you get snow, if you're in a snow area, now is a good time. And let's talk really briefly about no-dig garden. All no-dig gardening is putting down a heavy-duty layer of cardboard or brown paper bags in a heavy several layers. You would need several layers for brown paper bags, covering that with soil, compost, and then mulch, and then gardening in that directly. It is the perfect weed barrier, and I promise you it will reduce the weeds you have to contend with this coming summer. Now this bed has arugula and mustard greens growing in it, and they've gotten kind of bitter because the climate has been kind of odd. We've had warm, sunny days and cool days off and on all through October, and the arugula and the mustard greens aren't just a little bit bitter, they are extra bitter. So I am pulling them all. I'm going to reset this bed, but don't worry, these won't go to waste. All of this arugula and mustard greens, and I think there's some leftover lettuce leaves in there too, plants. They are all going to go to my chickens, and my chickens love to get stuff from the garden. Now we have a system for winterizing a bed that we always follow. So we never rototill. We are, as I've said a million times, we are no-dig gardeners, and I am an organic gardener as well. So I don't add a lot of additional fertilizers. I never add pesticides. I add very few chemicals, and those are only chemicals that are used on those fruit trees you see in my first row, and that is an organic fungicide, a copper fungicide, maybe some neem oil in there occasionally. Other than that, I use Surround kaolin clay. That's it. I don't use any other chemicals in my garden. So that's kind of an easy thing for me, but you do what works for your family and your garden plans. When I reset a garden, I just take a stirrup hoe. And by the way, this is my favorite garden tool. I use it for just about everything I do in the garden. I use the stirrup hoe to make sure that I've loosened up any weeds, any leftover plant debris like you see there from the arugula I just pulled out. Loosen just the top inch or so of the soil just to make sure I've pulled up any weeds that are newly sprouting or anything left over from plantings that I've done. I'll go through and pick out anything extra. Like these are tomatoes that fell in there from tomatoes that were planted. I had cherry tomatoes in this row, and I don't want those sprouting up next year and having to weed them out. So I just pull them out, throw them to the chickens, throw them in the compost pile, or sometimes I just throw them in the wooden path rows. Because I have wood chips down, nothing really grows in the rows, and we just, again, can run the scuffle hoe through it if we see a weed pop up now and then. And then I put a layer of compost. This is really well broken down, probably 2-year-old compost. I cover the whole bed in about 1 inch or 2 of that. And over the top of that, I put shredded leaves or grass clippings that have come from our yard. So I know they, again, don't have pesticides or herbicides or insecticides on them. Anything that comes in within the fence line of my garden has to be organic. I don't even put reused potting soil. If it was from a plant that I bought outside of my property, I make sure that everything in my garden stays organic because that is our preference. Adding compost is the single most important thing you can do for your garden. When you add compost, you are feeding your future harvests. And not just your harvest next year. That compost will continue to break down and continue to feed your soil in one way or another, and the microbes and the earthworms for years to come. Adding mulch on top of the compost insulates it. It provides and protects the moisture underneath in the soil. And that moisture is important because that helps keep the microbes living. I wanted to show you that even in the winter, there are surprises to be found in the garden. And those flowers were a big surprise. So after you've weeded, cleaned up, reshaped, added compost, and added mulch to your bed, you're going to add protection to the things that need protecting. So if you're overwintering tender plants, you can use row covers as protection for plants from cold weather or from wind. And it's as a season extender too. They work really well that way. If you live in a milder climate, here in New England, we don't really grow much in the garden. Once it gets really cold, there's not much that's going to grow. I do have garlic planted in the ground. I do have onions, green onions that will overwinter, but the green tops will die back and we won't see those again until next spring. But certainly cloches, floating row covers, fabric, those kinds of things can really help extend your season. Now, Mike walked up to me and handed me this perfect, beautiful New Dawn rose. There was one rose left on the plant, and I just thought it was so beautiful. And there are surprises in the garden all the time. And row covers also help with pest deterrent, and they minimize and can discourage overwintering pests depending on what kind of pest it is and if you're covering the row to keep the pests in there. There are times when it's absolutely necessary to remove some of your wood chips in your pathway to help reduce some of the pest pressure, but that's something for a whole different video. Remember this, and this is important. In the winter garden, you absolutely do not want to feed the wildlife, especially rats, mice, moles, voles, other rodents. You do not want them in your garden. They will be there year-round, and once they're established, they are very difficult to get rid of. I'm going to do a video coming up about how to deal with rats and mice in an urban garden because I think it's very important. It's something no one wants to talk about or think about, but if you have a garden, even if it's flower gardens, you have rodents in your yard, and they will try to make their home in your house too if they can. So we're going to do a future video on that. Be on the lookout for that. But I think that that's a necessary topic we should talk about. Just do your best to make sure you don't leave anything edible in your garden over winter. Pull all of your carrots, take in all of your parsnips. Don't overwinter those things if you can help it. Garlic usually does okay because it's very strongly scented and flavored and it's buried under the ground. But things like carrots, last year, I can tell you, I lost an entire planting of carrots to winter mice or rats eating them. So be on the lookout for that. Don't leave any edible produce in your garden that is going to be feeding those pests. When it comes right down to it, there is just a huge payoff to winterizing your beds every year. Not only will you have healthier plants the next year, you will have super easy spring harvests. You won't have to work like a dog to get the garden ready to be able to begin planting. Your plants will be healthy. You'll have maximum harvest, much better yields for not just this season to come, but for multiple seasons to come. Now, are you guys ready for the chicken parade? Check this out. Let me know down below how you do a winter reset in your garden. Or if you live in a climate where you can plant all the time, what do you do to give some of your soil a rest for a few months out of the year before planting again? Or do you just plant all the time, keep things growing all the time? And if you do, how do you keep that soil healthy and fed so that it's super productive for you? The bottom line for me is I love to garden, but I don't garden just to garden. I garden to produce food for my family, and I want the maximum amount of harvest for my efforts. So in order to do that, it's really, really important that I do a winter reset, feed and structural care in my garden beds every winter to be ready for the next season.
If you find this content helpful, do me a favor and go down and like, subscribe, and comment on this video. It helps so much with the algorithm, and we are working really hard to grow this channel, and we really appreciate your support. Thanks. Well, thank you for joining me today while we took this one last walk through the 2025 garden, and while we talked about how to get your garden beds ready, composted, mulched, and put to sleep, so that next year, next spring, and the whole season, you will have the most productive garden ever. I'll see you next time. Take care.